Addiction is a problem that needs no introduction. It could, and probably will, be discussed in more than just one episode. But for this episode, I would like to discuss some surface-level questions about addiction. The first being that we see addiction being prevalent with drug use. There's a lot of drug users in today's society, and it's pretty obvious what the issues are with drug use, but some of those drug users, I guess, don't really see those problems. They don't see those health conditions and whatnot. So how do we convince users to change themselves? How do we convince these drug users that what they're doing not only is wrong for their health, but is also wrong behaviorally and morally?
All right. So, how to convince them is, the answer is partially, it's pretty hard, actually. Somebody who got addiction, right, doesn't really think straight anymore. And it's very, very hard to explain to the certain people at this particular point when they are already deep in it, like, hey, you have a problem, because they already know it, right? They know that they have a problem. But for whatever reason, they believe that there is nothing they can do about it, and that they are destined to ride that train wreck all the way to the point of crash. So, it's pretty hard. And, honestly, obviously, I'm not a psychologist, doctor, or the counselor to actually go to the nuts and bolts about it. So, really, this is my personal point of view. I do not believe that the problem today is really addiction itself, because there are only certain people who have really that kind of dependency on drugs, alcohol, or whatever, right? Majority of the people who actually living that free life, like, hey, let's smoke pot every day, because it's fun, or let's get drunk every evening after work because we need to release that stress from our life. I think this is based on dependency. It's more, I would say, it's kind of psychological dependency rather than the physical dependency. And it's kind of, it shows us the weakness of America nowadays, weakness of the people, right? When the people get weak mentally, kind of almost like fold in to their problems, to their lives, and so in, they're always going to try to find the way kind of how to make themselves happy, because the happiness is, as we talked about a few times before, it's like a number one goal for everybody. Like, I want to be happy, right? I want to be happy. How can I get out from this stress? I'm at work, I'm completely stressed out, then I get back home, on my dry wake, I hate the people around me in the cars because everybody's, driving like crazy, and it just takes so long, and then I get home, and then I get a family, if they have a family, I got a family issues to deal with, and just like non-stop pounding from all directions at me, and I just cannot get out from it. I wanted my peace, I wanted my happiness. How can I do that? Well, I'm going to get drunk, or I'm going to get high, right? Or whatever choice. Like
escapism, basically.
It is, yes, escapism. So, and as we talked about again before in a few podcasts back, it's the life is hard. Okay, as we said before, life is very, very hard, and it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be because there's a purpose. Now, going to the drugs, going to some addiction of the choice, it's it's not going to solve anything, does it?
No.
Yeah, it postpones it only for a certain period of time, but then it comes back right away, and usually even stronger than before. Plus, the guilt is always attached to it as well. All these people, I don't care which one is it, they always have the guilt.
Right.
When that awesome feeling for those few hours disappears, when a person gets sober, then that person is back to his or her life, everyday life, and on top of it with the guilt. Hey, here I am again. I'm again stressed out. That didn't work. So I got to do it again. Just feel myself better again, right? And just again, every day.
It's basically a temporary fix that they almost always have to. Well, they have to keep feeding into that addiction, right? Whether that be alcohol or drugs, just for this like temporary solution that they think is permanent, right?
Yeah. So
it's kind of like the allergy medicine that I have to usually take whenever it's like summer or whatever, because you're not supposed to take something like Claritin over and over and over again, right? You're only supposed to just take it when you're like really kind of down in the middle of the season, but then you're supposed to take prevention, right, so that you eventually don't have to take that Claritin, because it doesn't work all the time, right? Eventually it starts becoming less and less effective the more you use it, right? And I guess that's kind of the same with drugs. Is maybe it's great the first time you try it, or same with alcohol. Maybe it's great the first time you try it, but then eventually your body slowly gets kind of used to it as it's an addiction, right? And then it stops becoming effective. And so you need to take even more of it to actually get that same result, right?
Correct. That is very correct. Exactly. So it goes to a certain point. And when it doesn't help anymore, then that person's got to choose something else, something much stronger, right? Like, let's say, for example, with the alcohol dependency, when a person is just drinking beer, eventually that beer is not enough. And that the person has to start drinking something stronger, go to the liquor, go to the whiskey, vodka, right? Rum or something like that, right? So, the bottom line is just the escape. That's what it is. It's escape. For majority of the people, I'm not saying again for the people who have really dependency, the physical dependency, and there are a few of them, no question about it, and then that requires definitely the doctor's intervention, right? The people,
we're not doctors, so yeah.
But for regular folks who just drink because they are stressed out, or they doing drugs because they're stressed out, that is something different. It's just pretty much the choice they making in their life. Now, biggest thing is that it doesn't solve anything, right? If you want to solve a problem, you got to keep solving the problem, even though it's difficult, it is hard, but not to walking away from it and hiding, so to say, in the woods, in their own little cubicle of happiness with a bottle of rum in a hand. That's not solving the problem. I know more than a few people, and you probably know yourself, for example, like the guys, right, who are, stressed out at the work because, hey, I have to be the man. I have to, take care of this and that. I have to take my responsibilities, and they're just pretty much walking away from it because, I'm just going to get drunk. And that's going to make me feel like a man for a while. Well, makes you feel like a man, but you're not a man. Right. You're actually less than a man right now. You're just a child who is, instead of crying in a corner, is drinking in a corner. And that is not the way to solve the problem. The problem is still going to be there, drunk or not, right? It's still going to be there, The issue you have, you are high or not, it's still there. You just don't see it.
Right.
Just putting, the blinds over your eyes. But, everybody else can see that the problem is still there. So the solution for the people is like, hey, I mean, like, there was a commercial a long time ago. I don't know who was that, but I remember that the guy was saying, stop doing it. What are you doing? Get some help.
Yeah, the Michael Jordan with the
Michael Jordan,
with
yeah, Michael
McDonald's ad, I
Jordan,
think.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, get some help.
Stop
Well,
doing that.
in
Get
this
some
point,
help.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't need the help. I mean, yes, to a certain degree, everybody needs the help. You need the, people who love us around, and there is still always, more than plenty, our family, right? Our loved ones, our friends. The life is hard, but it's not unmanageable, right? So if like the guys, hey, you are the problem with the manhood, you don't feel like a man because you are attacked from all the sides. Well, the only way to deal with it is just take it as a man.
Mm-hmm.
Just become stronger, become more resilient, work harder. Just work on those issues. And I guarantee if the guys would do that, instead just running away to the battle, right, hiding in their man cave and drinking, they will really face the problems. They would feel like a man. Because what manhood is, right?
Right.
Manhood is facing the problem, not running away from it. So in a certain point of view, it's kind of girlish, right?
Right. But I mean, yeah.
I'm scared. Yeah. I don't want to see it. I'm scared. I'm going to get the battle. I'm going to feel like a man. Well, wait a minute. You're running away like a little girl. That is not a manly thing. So you want to be a man, face the problem.
I got it now. A big question. So what if you are actually a woman, right? And you have an addiction problem?
That's the same thing. That's the same thing. I'm just using the wordage, but in reality, all of us facing the issues. Even the women. Women, I would say, again, from my point of view, it's just overeating, right? That's why obesity is such a huge problem among the females. I mean, you can hardly see female middle age and above not being obese.
Right.
So for the guys, it's a beer, right? For the women, it's usually the food, chocolate, stuff like that, because that's what makes them feel good. But then again, just because, you feel good for this short period of the time, it doesn't mean that everything is good.
Right, yeah.
It's just the empty feeling. That's about it. The only way is just to face it. Eventually, if every single one of us would face our problems rather than running away from them, I guarantee you most of these problems would go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And vice versa, on the other side, right, from a different point of view, if we stop facing our problems, if all of us, going to keep running away from them, well, those problems are going to get bigger, right? To the point that, our country is going to turn to the complete, anarchy-run state with no direction, no culture, nothing. Oh, wait a minute, it's kind of turning already. So that's what it is. I mean, we just cannot run away from the problem. It's just wishy-washing. It's not going to change anything. The hippies back in late 60s, early 70s, they tried it. Well, how did it work out? That wishy-washing, like, yeah, world peace. Well, is that going to bring any world peace? Am I going to feel you better, make you feel better?
Right.
But you somehow fighting for the world peace, but, sitting, on the ground, drinking, taking drugs, and, singing Hare Krishna, all that kind of crap. And it's not going to bring the world peace. World peace you're going to bring if you're going to start doing your job, actually, whatever your occupation is. That is my point about it. Yes, there is addiction, but I don't think there is physical addiction in our country right now. The big problem is just running away from the issues, from the problems, from the life itself, instead dealing with it. And of course, there is a small segment of the people who actually have real issues. Unfortunately, that's how it is. Everybody gotta carry their own cross. Their cross is, the addiction. Each of us got
Right.
something, right? So,
Yeah, it's I have a little bit of a story that I kind of want to share. I had a roommate who had a pretty big issue with marijuana, and I say had, still has. I just don't know that person really much anymore. But I remember when I first met them, and they were always telling me like, "Oh yeah, I take marijuana, but I'm trying to get rid of it." And a few months later, they got into some, I guess, personal struggles. They were in dating, of course, and they did like textbook worst things you could do when you're dating. And I was telling him, but of course he ignored. And so he got into kind of like a bit of a depression state, I guess. Depressive state? Yeah. We'll go with that. Depressive state. I started really feeding into that marijuana addiction. It got so bad that he was basically doing it like almost every day. And it shows to me that maybe he had the mindset of, okay, I can try to get rid of this, when things were good, right? But because it wasn't, marijuana probably wasn't giving him that high at that point. But when he was like depressed, he just fed straight right back into it, right? And it shows to me that there wasn't any effort, that it was all talk, right? Just all talk. Oh, I'm going to leave my addiction, rather than actually real commitment into actually doing something about it, right? It's easy to say, oh, I'm going to get rid of this addiction, but it's a little bit more challenging to actually do something about it, to actually act upon it. And it's I think a lot of people, they know what they're doing is wrong, right? I don't think it's that, oh, they don't know. It's pretty common knowledge what's wrong with things like marijuana, like excessive alcohol use, things like that. It's pretty obvious. I don't think you need, us to just have another episode to explain why that's wrong. It's pretty obvious, but people it's all words. They say, oh, I'm going to get rid of it. Yeah, I understand all the problems with it, but then they don't do it. They don't act upon it. They don't commit to the task at hand. And I think that's probably one of the other things that, kind of going off of what you said, it's not physical, it's a lot mostly psychological. Yeah, they don't have the mindset, It's not that they're physically stuck to it. It's just that they don't even want to get rid of their addiction. They don't have any drive whatsoever to get rid of it.
It is a natural reaction to the people, right? When they're facing something, all of us, right? When we're facing something, we try to find the easiest way out of it. Okay? Yeah, when we're facing something really painful, something really difficult, well, let's try to find a way around it.
Right.
Okay? Now, thanks, to the, present, culture, it's easier to get into the addiction without any repercussions. I was watching from Philadelphia. There are certain areas where just unbelievable. You got streets full of the addicts, just walking on the street like zombies, right? And they don't even know where they are anymore.
Right.
Now, if you would, imagine, that kind of lifestyle, right? These kind of people back in 1950s would be impossible. Because obviously these people have to eat something, right? They have to sleep somewhere, right? They cannot be on streets continuously 24/7.
Well, but they get welfare.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the problem, The used to be in the past, the people who kind of give up on their lives, who just don't want to face, the problems, who don't want to live their lives really, the hard lives, right? Because again, life is hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
They pretty much died. As unfortunate, as it is, but it's the truth, really, I mean, even in nature, right? When you have a herd of elk, right, or deer, the weak ones, they usually die because they
Right.
just cannot take care of themselves, right? We are artificially supporting the people who just don't want to do anything about their lives
Right.
with some kind of belief that, well, we are helping those people. We are not. We are not. You want to help those people? You go and actually help them to change their lives, right? Turn them around, like fix their lives, feeding them, taking care of them, providing with the medical help and so on. That welfare style help, that is not a help.
It goes back
That's
to
a garbage.
that
Yeah.
saying about, don't,
Yeah.
if you give a man a fish, he'll feed himself for a day. But if you give a man, if you teach a man to fish, he'll feed himself and his family for a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Giving somebody welfare is just a temporary fix. It's a temporary solution. It's a small bandage, but it doesn't
not even
actually
solution.
It doesn't stop the the bleeding, right?
Yeah. I gotta correct you on that one because I do not believe it's a solution. It's just still death at the end, but it's a slow death. Death, by thousand cuts.
That's kind of what I mean, right? It prolongs it a little, but it's still inevitable.
These organizations, those organizations and the people, behind it who think that they are helping them by providing them with the food and all the other necessities for their life, they're not helping them. They're still killing them, but slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and just to the point that, well, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think that maybe that's what they want actually, because they can, all these so-called charity organizations, they can get more money from the government, more money from the city, more money from the state governments, and so on, and continue doing their good job, really good job, right? But in reality, they do nothing.
Right.
Just really, it's kind of like a business, right? We need to create more customers, right? So how would you create more customers? Like, hey, let's let more people fall into the dependency. Well, I'm sure that God understands what you guys are doing, and one day you're going to get a reward for it because what you're doing is not a charity.
Yeah.
So that will be my, my pitch to those people who think so good about themselves, how helpful they are, because they are not. You're killing those who are dependent, very, very slowly. And that is very inhumane in my point of view. So there was I remember that.
I do gotta mention we are almost out of time.
Okay,
so
I'm watching the time. We got 2 minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes. The movie Inception, I'm pretty sure you remember, about 13 years back, from Christopher Nolan. And in that movie Inception, they actually there was one segment of that movie when they showed the people who were living in the dreams. It was kind of like an underground facility and living in the dreams instead of living their own lives, because they were just so tired with the lives they were living because it was so hard. So they chose willingly to be pretty much permanently living in that dream world.
Right.
Remember that segment of that movie? Yeah. And to me, from that whole movie, that was almost to the point like really scary, because I was kind of thinking like, wow, what about if one day, because the technology, right? What about if one day there will be people, even whole societies, living like that in that the dream world instead, choosing to live their own lives? That's a very scary, thinking. So we don't want to end up like that. So let's face our issues. Let's face our difficulties, because that's what makes us a people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To make that commitment. All right, then. Well, we're just coming up on to the end of the time. We will probably talk about addiction again, about other aspects about addiction, such as technological use, and as well as like sex and dating and things like that. But that will be it for this week. In the next episode, we'll be actually talking about timidness, how to overcome it, and be more comfortable around others. If you have any other questions, feel free to send them to us, as we may answer them in a future episode. We'd appreciate it if you could follow us on all social media. And until next week, thanks for listening, take care, and God bless.
Godspeed.